I think one of the questions that I always asked when I came into this film is like, oh, why did it take 53 years for for someone to speak up? And sometimes we forget like the circumstances that our parents' generation or other generations went through, especially when they come to a new country and they just have to survive.
Yeah.
Like they don't feel that they have the agency to speak up and that their memories and their truth don't have value. And that was like a very important theme for the film for me, is that America Ferrera says that, the idea that giving voice to the voiceless is sort of flawed because a lot of these people have been speaking the whole time. We just haven't been listening, right?
100%.
And so who do we choose to listen to?
All right, we're rolling. Let it rip.
We're rolling. We're here with the award-winning filmmaker, Mr. Bao Nguyen. Bao is home. This is home for you.
Yeah, I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. So, DC, DMV, it's very home for me.
DMV. Also, from what our listeners, Twig and I love talking about Obama pretty much every episode.
Is he here?
He's
He's
in the back.
Okay.
And Bao and I don't think we met when you were on the Obama campaign,
No.
But your roots go way, way back, like Twig and I. Obama organizer 2008.
Yeah. Even I was they had this thing called the Organizing Fellows, and I was one of the Organizing Fellows.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was strange because I was, I was working in New York, working at a nonprofit, and just like seeing all the energy that was happening in the primaries. I was like, I want to like be part of that. Like, this is like historic. And I saw that there was, they were recruiting organizing fellows. And I was like, they were doing it in Virginia. I was like, okay, I can like crash with my family and try this out, and not thinking of where it would go. And, it was a grind. I mean, as we all know, that coming from 08, but it was definitely a grind for people who wanted to like be part of it more, to not just be a volunteer. And so I thought that was like my easiest end to do the fellows program. But, it was competitive. It like felt like The Apprentice in many ways, and try to get like a staffing position. And I remember going to, one of the things we had to do was like register voters, right? That was like a very important metric of the campaign. And it was summer 07. And I was just always a very strategic person. So I was like, I think The Dark Knight was coming out that weekend. I was like, I'm going to go hang out in Tyson's Corner and I'll get so many people. And of course, people are walking in. They don't want to be stopped. They don't want to be registered. And like, I was there for like 2 hours and I couldn't get anyone registered. And I finally got someone registered, and like the staff were walking out of Tyson's Corner at that moment. The staff of the Obama campaign that were sort of the ones that were supervising the organizing fellows, and they like winked at me. I mean, it's like Luke McGowan. I think y'all know Luke.
Oh my God.
And like
Luke.
that moment, because it was just serendipitous that I happened to be like registering someone at that moment that they walked out. They're like, Bao's killing it.
Yes.
Right? I was not killing it, but I luckily at that moment was registering someone, and then they took like 2 or 3 fellows out of like hundreds.
Yeah.
And so that continued my Obama journey, and I stayed in Virginia, and I was really happy to stay in Virginia just because there's a large Asian American population here. I felt like this was one of the first campaigns that, the candidate was speaking to that community.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like use my skills as much as possible to, really engage my community as much as possible, especially like the Vietnamese American community.
Which is huge in VA.
Yeah, massive.
Incredible. Look at that, Twig.
That's an incredible story. And so then, like, when did the idea of becoming a filmmaker kind of crystallize for you? Had you always wanted to be a filmmaker? Was that what you were doing in New York before the Organizing Fellows side adventure? Like, where did the filmmaking come in? Because you're an extraordinary filmmaker over a relatively short period of time.
I blame it, and I also thank my parents for them leading me to become a filmmaker. I blame as many sort of like children of refugees and immigrants. Like I always felt this burden to be a doctor or a lawyer or engineer. And again, those were the only examples that they had for success in many ways coming from a new country. They didn't see many Vietnamese American filmmakers. So that never was a way to be successful and stable. But, they, as immigrants and refugees, they came over to America, had very little money in their pocket. They ended up opening a fabric shop over in PG County. And just through sort of their entrepreneurial spirit, they realized, like many, immigrants, they were going to make their own clothes. They couldn't afford to buy clothes. And so they went to the fabric shops and they bought fabric and made their own clothes. And they realized that a lot of immigrant communities were coming to these fabric shops to make their own clothes.
Yeah.
They saw, Indian community go and buy sari cloth, and then African community buy like kente cloth.
Yeah.
They were like, some people would just walk by and not think of anything of that. They're like money-making opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so they went up to New York and went to buy it wholesale, a lot of these fabrics, and would sell the fabric in the back of their car in front of the fabric store that they were originally buying it from. And they basically saved up enough and to open a small shop. And, this goes into my filmmaking journey because, again, as many refugee immigrant families, they made me work at the store at the age of 5. So just imagine like a little cute Asian kid ringing the customers up. I was working in the cash register. And my sister, who was older than me, she was cutting the fabric. And so she would cut the fabric. She would write up like a little invoice slip. They would hand me the invoice slip and I would ring them up. And remember, this is like late 80s, early 90s, where not every kid had like an iPad like they do nowadays. And so I had nothing to sort of like stimulate my brain at that time. As a 5-year-old, just sitting at the store working on the weekends and seeing kids like playing outside and like watching Saturday morning cartoons was really traumatic in many ways to me at the time. But I had these invoice slips, and on the the opposite side of these slips was just a blank page. And so I ended up just like sketching and drawing nonstop on these pieces of paper. And looking back at it now, I was actually like storyboarding.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
It, that sense of boredom really ignited my imagination. And that's how I got into visual storytelling. And that was the start of that journey of always like loving how visuals can tell a story. I should also say, like, me and my sister always went to the Blockbuster that was like across the shopping center from us. And we just like wait, like anxious little kids waiting for like that new release to come through the, they would drop them off through that little slide.
Yeah,
thing.
I know. I used to work at Blockbuster.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
Did you really?
Yeah. It was the coolest job in America at that time. Was being a teenager working at Blockbuster.
That's great. And so that, I got to watch a lot of films with my sister at that time.
Yeah.
And I, got to love filmmaking in a way. I actually, at the age of 8, I was 8 years old, I made my first like short.
Get out.
I didn't know at the time. It's always in hindsight you realize these moments, right?
Totally.
There was a class assignment to sell a product, which is like the most American thing you can teach a third grader. I was in third grade, and it was supposed to be like a written assignment or like a drawing assignment. And for some reason, I decided to like borrow my neighbor's like VHS camcorder, and it directed like a Nike Spec commercial.
Yeah, because commercials.
Yeah,
Commercials.
that's the way. Nike Spec commercial starring fake Deion Sanders. But it's, I just had Deion Sanders was like playing for different teams or playing different sports at that time. So I had my friend playing against himself was the, I wish I had. Yeah. I wish
Magic
I had.
of cinema.
Exactly. I don't know. That was like the first thing I did. I remember it shot for shot now. But obviously I didn't keep it because it was just a school project. And so that was like the first time I actually like practiced filmmaking. And I went to NYU, fast forwarding. I didn't go to like their film school because again, I was like, had this like, burden that I felt that I had to carry about being the son of a refugee. And so I studied political science, like international relations, wanted to be like a diplomat or like a lawyer for like Amnesty International. And that's what like continued my path onto like working for nonprofits. I was at AmeriCorps for a little bit as well.
Nice.
And but I always continued like my filmmaking practice. At every like elective that I had, I would take classes at Tisch, the film school, and always, you know, be involved in that world. But I never thought it was going to be my vocation until, you know, after it's actually, you know, post-Obama campaign, when I didn't get like the administration job in the White House that I wanted. I, you know, got offered like Veterans Affairs, and of course, you know, that very important department, but I wanted to be like in it. I was like this guy who grew up in DC that, you know, dreamt of sort of the West Wing version of the Obama administration. And so I decided I'm going to study for my LSATs, and it was actually like reading, you know, Audacity of Hope, thinking like, okay, you can be a lawyer and do things that are still like inspirational and creative. But after like studying for my LSAT, like that sort of changed things. It made things
such
more
an Obama file
practical.
though. This is amazing. Okay.
But I remember the day that I was supposed to take my LSAT, I was like sitting in my car, key in the ignition, and I just had this epiphany. I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like many, I mean, some people just continue that life. And I had this moment where I remembered my dad, you know, he worked late from the store, come home late. We'd have dinner like around 8 and we wouldn't finish till like 9. But usually after dinner, he would take out like this notepad, and me and my sister one day like huddled around him. We're like, what are you drawing? And he was drawing these architectural designs. And he told us that he always dreamt of being an architect when he was a young boy in Vietnam, but because, you know, circumstance, he had to come to America, survive, and take care of a family. He never lived out that dream. So I thought, like, is it honoring my parents' sacrifice by becoming a lawyer and doing something I never had a passion for? Or would like the true honor be to, you know, go do something that they paved the way for me to accomplish? And so I took the key out of the ignition. I never took the LSAT. I lied to them. I hope they're not like frequent listeners of the program.
They're huge
they are.
listeners. Yeah.
But I didn't take it. I lied to them. I told them I didn't get like the best score. You know, to get into the top law school, you got to get a pretty perfect score. And I was like, what if I continued my education? Because again, a lot of immigrant refugee parents are like, education is, you know, one of the reasons they came over to America. So like, what if I got my master's? And they're like, sure, if that like helps the law school process. And I was like, yeah. But I ended up getting my MFA. And
this is amazing.
Incredible.
And so that was like my, you know, I was sort of codifying my passion to be a filmmaker by going and getting my MFA in filmmaking. And so that leads me to today, where I'm really privileged to be able to call myself a filmmaker.
The first film of yours that I saw was this film with this guy at Sundance last year. So we were in the Sundance premiere.
With the after party.
And the after party.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to just name drop that we were there, but it was
was it the Sundance premiere or the LA premiere?
Oh, I'm talking about the LA premiere. I went to both.
Oh, you went? Yeah, you're such a Bao stan.
I am such a Bao stan that I went to both the Sundance and
I think you're like one of the very few people who had the privilege and like to go to both. Not even my family.
Speaking of privilege,
like they're just like Brad's such a great cheerleader, as everyone knows. So yeah, I had to like separate my parents because they're divorced. Like my mom could only go to Sundance, and my dad went to LA. So you went to both. So you're the bridge between both. But okay, sorry.
Hilarious. That's very on brand for you. And it was so good. And I'm obsessed with like a process doc. So I love watching a process unfold. So this, plus I love pop culture, plus I love all of the artists who are in this. So it was such a treat to get to see. And how did this one, I know you have a new film coming out and we're going to talk about that one next, but I would love to know a little bit about like how this came to, you know, your awareness, the archival of this is unbelievable. If folks haven't watched it, be sure to watch it on Netflix. But what was the process to you making this film?
Well, I got approached by my producer of my second film, Be Water. This was during the pandemic, and we had just premiered Be Water at Sundance. This is January 2020, so like right before the pandemic, and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do next with each other. And we knew that there was a lot of uncertainty about whether or not you're going to be able to go shoot, and so we wanted to find a story that had a lot of archival. Smart. And as great producers produce, she found the story of We Are the World, and she asked me, "Oh, do you know the song We Are the World?" I was like, "Of course I know the song." She's like, "Do you know the story?" I was like, "Not really." In fact, I was 2 years old when the song came out, and I always found the song to be a little corny in many ways, and in a very earnest way. And I was like, I don't know if like We Are the World, like I want to do that after like Bruce Lee. And then I read more about the story of the making of the song, and it immediately sort of inspired me. Like there were so many elements of genre that I thought I can kind of implement for this film. Like it felt like a heist film. There's like a ticking time bomb to it.
Yeah.
And you said there's a process to it. I love process films as well. And so I was like, okay, let me think if I have like an approach to this story that makes it unique. I was still like processing that for a long time. And I come to a lot of epiphanies in my life, because I'm always like, I'm pretty reflective as a filmmaker. And I went to go visit my parents, who actually now live back in Vietnam. And I got into a taxi cab. It's like 70-year-old taxi cab driver, doesn't speak a lick of English. He puts on a mix CD. The first song that comes on is We Are the World. I was sort of like,
stop it.
I was just like wondering if I was hallucinating, because the opening melody is like so iconic, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way, this must be like a Vietnamese, like they stole the beat for another song, but it was the song. And I was just like, okay, it's serendipity that I got to do this film. And, in the process of making the film, I realized like all these connections that I've had to Lionel Richie and all these, pop icons. Again, my parents, they didn't speak much English when they first arrived, but they love Lionel Richie records. And so I would hear Lionel all the time when I was younger, and then I would hear We Are the World. And, in a way, the song and pop music became a bridge to my parents' immigrant background and my American background. So I always am, again, finding these like connective tissues when I'm making a film. So it feels personal to me that I'm always passionate about the story and the project. Even at first, I was a little hesitant because I thought the song was a bit corny. But I think through the making of a film and like discovering a story, that's what always like keeps me inspired, is to know that I'm discovering along with the audience in many ways.
Did you listen to Lionel Richie?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure you dressed up as him. Like
we're all the kids of immigrants, refugees, and a lot of Lionel Richie was in my house too. I think there's a thread there.
A lot of Michael as well. I mean, pretty much every artist in that. I mean, that's what
global
makes
superstars.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, because I think most people who are Netflix subscribers have seen it, because I remember it being the number one. Was it not the number one film in the world on Netflix?
When it came out, it was the number one film, like overall, and like in 58 countries. Like it was
incredible.
Top.
Grammy nominated, Emmy nominated.
That is huge. That is so many people.
So many people.
Yeah, it's 1.3 billion, something crazy like that. We beat like Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
in terms of music documentary. I was like, what? Like, to be honest, like I didn't, again, when you're making something, you think you hope people will watch it. You don't know how big that this, and people from all around the world were like, We Are the World was like such a pivotal moment in my life. And that's really, any moment you have to like bring joy to the world now is like a practice of mine, as much as I can in the work that I do, because it's so hard to get joy. And we're also trying to like fight for people's attention. So when they can watch something that gives them a little joy, I'm really grateful. And the sort of response to the film has been beyond my wildest imagination.
It's a really funny film too. Like there's so much comedy.
Stevie Wonder.
There's so much comedy. Huey Lewis as well was hilarious. the stories of, the kind of like, will Prince come? Will he won't come? It was so good. I also find it interesting, Bao, connecting back to your organizing days. We Are the World was of a moment, and then it kind of kicked off a music, social impact, donation, nonprofit craze. I feel like it kind of changed the way that artists can like use their art for social good. And we don't do it anymore. I was trying to remember, like, when was the last
not in this way. I mean, I think
style
like
song
Live Aid, Farm Aid.
But that's like 30 years ago.
Well, they have
Global
like they did something for the
Citizen.
fire. They did Fire Aid.
Oh, they did Fire
Aid. Yeah,
That's
Global
the right
Citizens.
term, yeah.
You know, I mean, but I think to your point, it's less of like the mega hit thing. and
Original
more of
song.
But we
Right.
live in a different world today where it's like there's so much noise,
True.
right? And like this could sort of be its thing. This could have a moment. Well, now it's really hard to find those moments that capture entire worlds, their attention. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's so, and I should also correct that, there was, because there's going to be the Band-Aid people who say like, oh, well, Band-Aid did come
Very good
first
point.
in some ways, but I think in America it was definitely We Are the World. And what's interesting about We Are the World that also attracted me to the story is that Harry Belafonte, who has been was such a guiding light for activists and people in creative spaces to intersect. Like he said that I'm quoting here or paraphrasing, like there's black folks, white folks helping black folks, but not black folks helping black folks because of Band-Aid was mostly white artists. And so seeing what was happening in Africa,
right,
like he wanted to empower the black artist community here, and he did it in such a way that was iconic, and it then became inclusive of not just black artists, but artists like Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen, Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, Bob Dylan.
Incredible.
Another
Dylan,
pure comedy.
The other part too is for fans of the song and of the video. There was already before the film, like the Bob Dylan meme of him just looking completely lost while everyone is singing. But then to see that backstory of Stevie almost like getting it out of him was unbelievable.
We knew that was always going to be like an arc of the story. Like that Bob Dylan, you might laugh at him at the beginning, but there's like that triumphant moment where Stevie really helps him, and that Bob Dylan like finds his voice, right?
Yeah.
and finds his voice in the song.
So you interviewed Bruce.
Yeah.
Did you interview Stevie or no?
No, we didn't interview Stevie.
Didn't interview Stevie. Obviously, Lionel's kind of like...
Lionel's a storyteller.
The storyteller. What were some of your favorite interviews? What was the Bruce interview like?
Bruce was like... I don't get nervous for doing interviews, but I was pretty nervous around the Bruce interview because there was a very specific time that he had to do it. He just did like a whole week on The Tonight Show with like Jimmy Fallon. He'd just come back from like his vacation. And so he really fit us in a very gracious way. And it was like at his place in New Jersey and, his cars and his studio and...
the set looked very Jersey.
Well, it's called the gardener's office. That's like the name of that room in his complex.
Oh, cool.
And he was like one of the only people we didn't interview in the actual studio where they recorded the song.
Right.
And I was like, okay, we'll give him a pass because it's the boss. But that, that time restraint and just talking to Bruce Springsteen is a bit nerve-wracking, and he's such a cool guy. Like his answers were so like matter of fact.
They were,
He wasn't, he's like, I came, I did the thing, and it worked out, and I'm glad.
He wasn't gushing at all.
No, which is good because I think there's like certainly some people, obviously like Lionel, who it meant so much to him, but for like Bruce, it's like 1 out of like 100 amazing things that he's done in his life.
Totally.
And he was just so, I think he represents a lot of the audience. It's like great that it was made.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite song in the world, but it did its job, and that's what, is important.
Yeah.
Bit of a lack of sentimentality around it.
Yeah.
But in a charming way.
Yeah, in a very Bruce Springsteen, straight to the point type
Whereas
of way.
Huey Lewis, on the other hand, was just the best because he was so excited to be in the room.
I mean, he was like one of the most fun interviews and just the nicest man in the world. Like, I remember after we finished his interview, because he lives in like Montana now.
Oh, wow.
And I think his son lives in LA, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to meet my son in a few hours, but is it okay if I like, stick around and hang out while you do the next interview? Right. I was like, of course. And he's like, do you need any help with anything? I was like, no, Huey, you can just like Lewis. Chill and
hold this apple box.
Yeah. So no, the sweetest guy. And he's, it was important for me because, in the early approaches to the film were like, are we going to like talk about people who weren't there that night, who are like big fans and can talk about like the impact of the song? But like for me, something is so like more impactful and intimate when you're just talking about the people who are there. Yeah. But they can become surrogates for a lot of different perspectives. Like, so Huey became like this nervous fanboy that had to be on the song. And we had this guy, Ken Wu, who was a camera operator, one of the camera operators that night. And, having done Be Water and, working with a lot of community organizations where representation does matter, I was like, we got to find that Asian that can tell part of the story. So we like looked through all the lists and the credits, and I was like, Ken Wu, we got to get Ken Wu somehow.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't not necessarily just, for when we're talking about representation, we know why it matters because that experience matters, that background, that history matters. And it wasn't just like this idea of like tokenism. And so having talked to Ken about his night, like he was like a pretty new camera operator at that time, just came to LA a couple years ago. He knew nothing about that night. And he was just so effusive about being there and being grateful for being there, which again, we all know coming from the work that we do that we're expected to be grateful. But then when we knock it out of the park, like it's another level.
So cool.
And now Ken has like 26 Emmys. Like he is this sports guy. He's the guy who like shot like Carrie Strug, like landing on her leg. And he shot like Muhammad Ali lighting the torch at Atlanta. So it's great to like see people's journey and just see their humble beginnings, even though this film is not about Ken Wu, but it just speaks to like why all these experiences and perspectives are really important in storytelling.
That is incredible. Before I want to talk about the new film, before we switch to that, is there a story or tidbit or anecdote or gossip, dare I say, that you couldn't include, but now that it's been out for a little while, you can give us a little bit of a...
I'm trying to think. I mean, like juicy gossip, we included most of it.
The Sheila East stuff was really sad.
Very
like the
sad.
Fact that she kind of felt used.
Yeah.
I thought that I love that you included it, especially considering, and I feel like Lionel also kind of admitted to it, that they were really trying to use her to get to Prince. And she felt, she was kind of
bummed.
She literally said she was used. I mean, that was such a sort of a heartbreaking moment listening to her story, because that's not something she's ever discussed before publicly.
Yeah.
And
did you guys know that going in?
No.
Like, how did you get that?
I mean, like she kind of just opened up in a way. And that's when, you forget that you're making a film. You're just talking to someone from at a human to human level, and everyone was, tearing up when they heard that part of the story, because she was being very vulnerable, knowing, coming into a story that's very celebratory and joyful, but knowing that, it's not a straight line to these things. There's imperfections and there's egos, even though, famously there's a sign saying check your egos at the door, but certainly with all these people in there, and for her to say that on camera, it meant a lot. And to Lionel's credit, like, Lionel was a producer on the film. He was very kind of hands off, but he would see like, almost to the final cut just as a courtesy to him before Sundance. And he's like, that's how it happened, basically, to me.
Right.
It's like,
we're not going to cut it. Right?
We're not going to cut it.
Is there anyone who didn't participate that you heard of that regretted it? Or like
regretted not being part of the film?
Or
random Steve Perry.
Interesting.
Steve, his voice obviously is so iconic, and one out of a sea of many great voices in the song. Like it really stands out to me. So when he saw the film, we did like a special CAA screening, and he saw it and he like loved it. He felt, because they're there for their part. They don't see everything that's happening around them.
Right.
He was like, this was like more intense than being there in a way.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And so and he's like, I wish I could have been more involved in the making of it. But, I think just that sort of feedback was.
Who was the artist who walked out? I'm forgetting. Waylon Jennings.
Waylon Jennings.
Yeah, Waylon Jennings. That was so great.
Yeah.
So, Bao, you have this award-winning, record-breaking documentary on Netflix. What then made you choose to do something, I wouldn't say completely opposite to it, but this is a very different film.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the film?
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah. Tell us about
this.
this.
So, I mean, for filmmakers to try to like consolidate a nearly 2 hour experience into a few words is hard. So I'll try my best. The Stringer is following a team of journalists who are investigating the authorship of the very famous Napalm Girl photograph. And so the film takes us along like a 2-year investigation that spans the globe, trying to find this individual who you see here, who's only known in the beginning as the Stringer. So yeah, I mean, to your earlier question, Brad, I'm someone who loves culture, especially American culture, the things that defined what we celebrate as a society, what we look towards, what we're inspired by. And so, yeah, my first film was about Saturday Night Live, which is a very famous cultural institution. Second film is about Bruce Lee, very famous cultural icon. We Are the World, Greatest Night in Pop is about We Are the World, iconic song. And this film is about iconic photograph. And it's always about kind of deconstructing what we thought we knew about these things that have been held up as cultural icons, be it people or objects. And I think that, I always think about like, what's the Trojan horse of a story? So sometimes like these big ideas or these cultural institutions become the things that hook an audience, but it's really the deeper stories and the sort of deconstructing the mythologies behind it is what attracts me to these films.
How did this one get on your radar? Like, is this something that you had been curious about and that sort of launched you into it, or did someone bring it to you? Or
no, I mean, I had never thought of the authorship of the photograph, to be honest. It was the AP credited Vietnamese American staff photographer, Nick Ut, who, as a Vietnamese American in a very small creative community, I always revered like the accomplishment of that photograph of Nick getting awarded a Pulitzer Prize, a World Press Photo Award, all these accolades. I was like, oh, wow, a Vietnamese person did that. And, I just got like a random email actually from a group of journalists who were just setting off on their investigation. And I was like, I was someone who always revered the field of journalism, to being able to like speak truth to power, to raise the questions that no one else had raised. And so, got the email, got on a phone call, and my jaw just sort of dropped when I heard just the possibility of the authorship being questioned. And, it's important to note that, the authenticity of the actual photograph and the impact of the photograph, there's no question of that. It was taken, how powerful it was, and how it reverberated around the world during the Vietnam War. But this is very much a question of the authorship. And I think as a filmmaker, I felt, I'm in a very privileged position to be able to tell the story of these, courageous journalists who are willing to disrupt their own community and asking a question that has been never asked for, or it hasn't been asked for a long time.
It's incredible. I mean, it's a beautiful film. Thank you, Bao, for letting us. We got a preview link because this is what happens when you're friends with Bao Nguyen, you know?
You didn't see
not
it?
out,
I thought
not
you
out
saw it
quite
at
yet.
Sundance.
Not out quite yet.
I didn't go to Sundance this year.
True.
You're a real Sundance darling.
You really are. Sundance.
I mean,
are you? Is this three films?
No, well,
3 in a row.
Yeah. My last 3 films have all been at Sundance.
Yeah.
I did have 2 films in a consecutive years, so I'm hoping for a three-peat.
Like
with my next film. No, but
do you
Sundance,
have your next? Do you have your next film? Are you working?
Oh yeah, I'm doing a Jimi Hendrix film. I forgot to I mean, that's not. I don't like to talk about films until they're done. Too,
let's go.
I'm pretty superstitious.
Okay.
I'm so excited for the Jimi. Did you know I had a Jimi Hendrix Are You Experience poster? It was Michael Jordan, Jimi Hendrix, Tiger Woods were the 3 posters.
I did not know that. No.
In my high school bedroom. Incredible. What do you think from this film? Because I know we don't have enough time. I'd love to go through it, but also people haven't seen it yet, so it's coming out soon. I feel like
Netflix.
I also don't want to spoil it because I do feel like it's the kind of film I had no idea what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read anything about it, and it really blew my mind. It's such a beautiful film. How much of the filmmaking, because the way it's shot is very comparable to Greatest Night in Pop, where it's like kind of a heist, like you're kind of figuring out.
You manipulate time you use time. Not manipulate. You use time to give structure to a plot very well as a filmmaker, I would say.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm always looking to sort of the film genres and conventions or principles that make me interested in a story, but also ways that are emotionally honest to the story.
Yeah.
And I mean, The Stringer played out pretty chronologically in many ways, but it was, I look to stories or old films like All the President's Men.
I was thinking of that.
And even Searching for Sugar Man. There's a lot of.
Oh, that's such a good comp.
Yeah. I was inspired by finding something,
right? Be
it finding the truth or finding a person. And
well, and in this case, I was very much is this guy going to be alive? Who?
That's the big
question. The way that the time you're using time is just is this even going to be an answerable question,
right? In
living memory,
right,
or not?
So beautifully done, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's funny, just to tie in our earlier part of the conversation of my dad always dreaming of being an architect and not having the space to think he could do it. I think one of the questions that I always asked when I came into this film is why did it take 53 years for for someone to speak up? And it's, sometimes we forget the circumstances that our parents' generation or other generations went through, especially when they come to a new country and they just have to survive.
Yeah.
They don't feel that they have the agency to speak up and that their memories and their truth don't have value. And that was a very important theme for the film for me is that, there's something that America Ferrera says that, the idea that giving voice to the voiceless is sort of flawed because a lot of these people have been speaking the whole time. We just haven't been listening, right?
100%.
And so who do we choose to listen to? Whose value do we whose stories do we give value and dignity to? And that again was a compass for me when making this film of no matter who you think took the photograph, it matters that we listen to people who felt like they've been denied their story and their memory for so long.
Carrying on from what you just said, and I know we have to wrap shortly, but an archive is, and someone smart, Sarita Gate, shout out Sarita, said this to me years ago, but and as someone who's produced archival based documentaries, as an archive is a statement of value. And so often our history has not been archived in the same way. And so to see a beautiful filmmaker like you, who's like applying such incredible kind of cinematic craft, readdress, like go back to these archives, whether it's Grace Anatomy Pop, whether it's Bruce Lee Bewater, whether it's The Stringer. And I think is a testament and a big statement about how in this contemporary moment we have to value so much of what got us here that hasn't necessarily didn't get the shine at the time, but like can now. And are you primarily interested in archival docs, or are you sort of form agnostic? Or
Twig wants you to direct her next film. You are I think you might be the two Obama alumni filmmakers. I don't know that there are any other Obama alumni organizers.
There are a lot out there, I'm sure.
Are there?
Yeah.
There should be like a club, you know?
We should start it.
Yeah.
Or we haven't been invited to it.
Right, exactly. Either that or we're just, total outcasts.
But I mean, to your question, it's funny because I as I said earlier, like my film journey started as like the very visual part for me, like creating the visual from scratch.
Yeah.
But I've found that I'm attracted to stories where the visual exists in a way, the archive, and there's such beauty in archive. And you said it so eloquently of like how many communities feel like we don't have value because we don't have an archive. And so it's also re-examining the archive that has been given value too, right?
Yeah.
Be it this photograph or the making of We Are the World, and how do we, through new lenses and perspectives, add to that story, that history of what's important in our culture. And, there was a time when I was like very hesitant to be like, or to do stories outside the Asian American lens, because it's like, I felt like, okay, because I believe that when someone tells a story from their community, it's very empowering and it's very important.
Yeah.
But that's not the only way to tell a story. I think having that recognition and awareness that it is always important to include people's perspectives within the community. But like, a filmmaker told me one time, very prominent white filmmaker, she was just like, sometimes it's someone entering this new space, a new community, that they can see the beauty in something that maybe someone who's lived it for too long has maybe forgotten about and neglected. So I think we're always having to be aware of like when we recognize beauty and how we can bring beauty into these communities. And I talk about beauty in a larger sense, right? And what that means, like the Astor Gates says like beauty is an essential service. Like, because sometimes I'm thinking like, why am I not doing stuff that's like helping people get fed or helping people get housed? It's like, why is that the bare minimum for a lot of communities, that they just need housing, they just need to get fed? Why don't they deserve beauty in their lives in many ways? And so this was a long conversation.
I love it.
But I think like for me, like, how do we repurpose that beauty in a way that feels personal and feels intimate to our experience? And for a long time, I was like, I can only tell Asian American stories. And I just started to expand the scope of what I think I can do, what I'm allowed to do. I always had to feel like I had to ask permission. And there's a lot of other filmmakers from different communities who never felt like they had to have permission. They felt 100%. Like they can come from a neutral standpoint, right? Because of what they look like, and they can be objective. But I think sometimes we have to own our subjectivity in many ways, that what we bring is like emotion and experience and thoughtfulness to a story. And a filmmaker I respect deeply, Dawn Porter, she made a film about Jimmy Carter, about Luther Vandross. Like, she has owned the idea that you can do whatever you want, but take care of that story.
I think that's not to make this, because we always got to tie it back to politics, because that's just what Twig and I do. But I do think that that's like a really great segue and maybe a close on how you're feeling about the state of our country right now, Bao Nguyen, because we have, in many ways, I think, sometimes siloed our communities with the best intentions, but giving sort of authorship or ownership of stories based off of things that, because there hasn't, in some cases, communities have never had a chance to tell a story. And so you're like, all right, well then, if you're going to tell a story, you better tell your community's story, right? And I feel like that is almost a metaphor for the Democratic Party, where we've all now get a seat and we're kind of only thinking about our own and not realizing that what we really need to be doing is connecting. What we really need to be doing is seeing ourselves in everyone else. And I think this sort of Trump reckoning, fascist fever dream that we're all living in, we just don't have the luxury anymore of being siloed. Like, it's just, you're seeing it in LA right now. You're seeing it with all these protests. Like, it just seems almost, it seems almost privileged to only think of your own community now,
Or if nothing else, anachronistic. Like, it's just an idea whose time has come to at least an end or a pause,
Agreed.
Just on that point, like, there's something, I'm paraphrasing here, because there's someone who once said, like, you'll never not love someone if you knew their full story.
Right.
Yes.
And that's something I learned from the Obama campaign, right? They wanted you to be able to tell your story of, like, why you were part of the campaign. I think that can bridge a lot of the divide. I mean, we're not going to cure anything, but we can heal from things if we become better listeners to each other's stories. And
100%. God bless you, Bao.
Totally. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations. Can't wait for this to be a
everyone go see The
hit.
Stringer on Netflix. Let's go. Thanks, Bao.
All right, thanks.